Good evening, everyone. Welcome to webinar on infrastructure and workplace design. This is organized by GBB Consulting Private Limited. My name is Suman Ramurthy. Joining us here are three experts. First, I would like to introduce our moderator, Ms. Meenal Sinha. She's the founder and CEO of meetingsandoffices.com and is one of the best known names in the world of co-working and shared workspaces in India. She has over 2 decades of corporate work experience, and her startup Meetingsandoffices.com is India's largest aggregator for all shared workspaces, business centers, service offices, co-working spaces, and anyone who has excess inventory. She lives in Mumbai with her husband and 18-year-old son. And we have Ms. Meghna Vajani. She is the regional head for West of India for Space Matrix. Relocated to Mumbai end of 2015 after living and working in London for about 16 years. Between 2007 to 2015, worked for Turner and Townsend, UK. Experience within the industry encompasses heading a property division for a financial institution, achieving a successful asset consolidation program, providing substantial savings, as well as managing projects for the institution. And then we have Deben Moza. He's an executive director and head project management services, Knight Frank India Private Limited. Deben has over 24 years of work experience in architecture, construction, project management, and corporate relocation. He has led teams delivering projects across multiple sectors, including hospitality, residential, commercial, healthcare, education, retail, and renovation, as well as refurbishment projects as a business leader and consultant. And now I'll leave to the experts. Meenal, please take over.
Thank you so much, Suman. And it's a pleasure being on a panel with GBB again. Thank you so much for inviting us over again. And I would like to thank all the attendees for choosing to be with us this afternoon again. Hi, Deben and Meghna, once again, and welcome on the panel. I think we are hosting part 2 of the webinar, right, Suman?
Yes, this is a part 2, yes.
On how
facility
managers have made it safe for workspaces to open again. So in the last webinar, we discussed how to safely reopen workspaces from the facility manager's perspective. And there's this report by this assistant professor of exposure assessment services at Harvard, Joseph Allen, where he's recommended a layered defense structure, basically elimination, saying that, as many people to work from home as is possible. Substitution, that is identify the core people who need to be in office and only them to be really asked to work to keep the business functional. Engineering controls to ensure that it is healthy buildings. And then administrative controls, that is de-densify the buildings. And last, basically PPE, which starts from basically that is wearing masks at workspace. So that is the aspect that we took care of in the last discussion, that this is how we make workspaces safe for people to come back. Now that moving on from here, I would like to ask Meghna and Deben to help us understand, now that offices are ready, this first cordon of safety has been taken care of, and people are slowly coming back or trying to come back to work. How do we progress from here? Are there any behavioral changes? Are there any specific changes in the project designs or in the requirements? And especially Meghna, people at various project stages. Are there any such changes that you are seeing? And when people are coming back, is the behavior changing? Deben, if you guys can, throw some light on this. And before you guys start, I would like to ask and request the participants, if you have any questions, please post your questions in the Q&A section. And if you want any specific panelists to answer, please address it to them or mention their name. Thank you so much. Over to you, Deben.
Thanks, Meenal. It's a pleasure to be on this panel and to have you as a moderator. If you see my background, it's not a virtual background. I'm operating from office, and we've been operational for almost 4 weeks now. So I can actually share a real-time experience with you in terms of how I felt after being locked down in my flat for almost 2 months, over 2 months actually. So the problem we faced during this pandemic is we have to basically address two issues. One is the environmental issue, another is a behavioral issue. Meghna can elaborate on the environmental issue, but I'll just briefly touch upon what that would cover. It would, its environment is about space we occupy. It's a macro one is the large buildings and the campuses we have, and the micro ones are the offices and desks and chairs and all. And whilst the environmental factors are easier to control, and they're controlled with very straightforward interventions, you can increase the intensity of the cleaning and sanitization protocols, have regular HVAC maintenance, increase fresh air, maintain humidity levels. That's something which is much easier to manage. But there's a lot of impact of a behavioral aspect to it. It's about the challenge is how we control our behaviors. We moved from pre-COVID to post-COVID, or pre-lockdown to post-lockdown era. And as humans, it's not easy to change the way we used to operate. So we've been hearing this term for almost 80, 90 days, new normal. So the behavioral change is how we behave in those environments, how we behave in our offices, how we maintain the social distance in the office. And Indians are very warm people, we like to be very cozy with people and very like to socialize. So that's something which post-lockdown has put some restrictions on it. We have to maintain 6 feet distance. So that's something which we should keep on reminding ourselves. We can have markers in our offices, we can have the staggered workstations, but still we have to manage it by looking at our behavior. And when we talk about how we meet people, how we use workstations, how we use our meeting rooms, certainly the breakout areas or the cafeterias have become redundant because nobody's having meals there. People are using their work desks to have their meals. There's no sharing happening. So certainly this has come as a big shock to us. I think going forward, if I look at how the users or the tenants would behave, is they would become very discerning about the services they require, because they would demand a healthy environment. And landlords or the developers have to be on their toes to meet those demands. And the employers would have to create the policies which would influence the entire behavioral changes. So it's the offices these days going forward will no longer be something which is 4 walls and roofs. It would be a space where you provide an experience of psychological and physical safety. So I think that's what we need to work on. We need to train ourselves. This is going to be the norm for next so many years. We've changed after 9/11 attacks, how we traveled, how we've gone through those stringent checkpoints. Now you enter office at different points. Your temperature gets monitored. You have to clean your hands more often. So this is work in progress, and we have to adopt this normal as part of our lifestyle.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So, because I belong to the design, background, we look at everything very emotionally. So, when I was thinking about this whole unlock, and when Meenal mentioned unlock, I said it's all about unlocking the mind, I feel. So you have to unlock the fear, what if, and then what? So what if I put a plan into place, and then what if it doesn't work? So it's important to know how you handle something like that. Secondly is unlocking the challenges. How do I? How do I do this? How do I regain my confidence? How am I supposed to do this? How is anybody else doing it? So we need to remember that we are all in it together. And the third bit is unlocking our ability to navigate. I completely sympathize with what you said. We've been through 9/11. We've been through that era. So we know how to do it, and we know how to change. So it's very important to remember that, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Hey, all of us are in this together. We will figure it out. Now, coming to the point of design and how has the unlocking changed design? When I was thinking about this, and because, Delhi and some of you are ahead of us in Mumbai, clearly, we are trying to figure out solutions that are working for everybody at different points. So somebody's ahead of us, someone's behind us, and we are right in between. So it's a strange feeling. So when I was thinking about this, it came to me very simply. What is it that we are trying to do through design? We are trying to design to meet needs. So what are our needs? Mental need is the ability to create. Emotional need is the ability to isolate. And physical need is the ability to collaborate. So if I'm able to achieve all of these three needs for anybody in any environment, basically I've met the needs, right? So then it's a successful office, whether it's lockdown, whether it's 9/11, whether it's, yesterday, whether it's Nipah, SARS, whether it's the monsoon of Mumbai for that matter. So if we've done all of this, we've met the needs. So what we did, and we all of us had to introspect a lot. And then we came back and we weren't able to find a pen and paper where we could work together. So we had to find a portal where we could all create together. So at Space Matrix, we use something called SaltMind, which is a Space Matrix group company of a software. And what that software does, it allows you to build in 3-dimension. So you are trying to effectively 3-dimensionally think of access, limitations, permutations, combinations, how many people. Today it's 30, tomorrow it'll be 55, today it's 10%, 10. There are so many things happening so quickly, and it's such a moving goalpost so that we had to create something that would allow all of us to put in all these algorithms and then be able to customize it to every client's needs. So then we had to do something like that, which then we could show to clients, because, kudos to all the facilities managers who are right in the front of the fighting. It's not easy, guys. I am very sympathetic, because you're going in there and everyone's looking at you, okay, bhai, वो सैनिटाइजेशन का क्या हुआ, वो एक्सेस कंट्रोल आपने ऑटोमेट कर दिया, व्हाट हैपेंड अबाउट मीटिंग रूम में तो 4 ही लोग बैठ सकते हैं, भले 6 लोग का मीटिंग रूम है. So we are asking people to do all these things, and they are heroes in frontline, but there's only so much they can do. So I think I went ahead, or instinctively we went ahead and dependent on technology to solve our problems. I hope I've answered some of the questions, but as Meenal asked more, perhaps I can stop rambling and get to the actual answer.
No, Meghna, you were not rambling at all. And in fact, you've answered a lot of the questions. I'm sure the participants are really thankful for that. And I really like what both Deben and you said, and the way you guys have put it across. I have already gained a lot of knowledge, and I'm sure the participants agree with me. I already have takeaways that I have noted down. Deben used a very amazing quote. He said, workplaces will be a place of psychological and physical safety. I think we are just like 10 minutes into the webinar. I think that's an amazing takeaway, and something that you started with: unlock the fear, unlock the challenge, and unlock the ability to navigate. I think that is a key. Both these things, I think, are a huge psychological takeaway from this webinar. For me, it's a great learning. And I think both these things are something that people are talking about, people are realizing, organizations are trying to do. But so there are corporates who are trying to do these things. But I think it's the smaller organizations, the MSMEs and startups also, who need to get together and try and do these things at a much greater level. And I think there are platforms there who are trying to do these things, but it needs to get into the consciousness of every individual. There are.
I have a point, Meenal. I'm sorry. And I think it's very important for us to understand and communicate to our employees that there's no such thing called zero risk, right? So whatever organizations are doing, the cleaning and sanitization protocols, the goal is to minimize the risk. So that, we're creating multiple layers of defense.
Yes.
In public health. So, how we would, with this layer of defense, is basically to prevent it. You might get contracted in spite of all the precautions, but it's something which we can delay it. I think the most important part for all of us now is we would see a building as nice to have, with all the features of well-being or a healthy way. It's must have now.
Must have. Yeah,
so
I totally agree. And I think this is again a point that we discussed in the last webinar as well, that the responsibility to be safe, to stay safe, and to ensure that the person you are meeting and the other person, not only at your home, but even in your office environment, lies on both the parties. And to stay safe yourself, please take all the precautions, wear the mask, and ensure that your colleagues, co-workers, as well as your family back home stay safe. So please take all the precautions that you're being asked to. And I think last webinar we were just discussing, there will always be in co-working spaces, there will be those problem clients, and in your own organizations there will be sometimes employees who will be like, why do I need to do this? I've already done this, and I've already sanitized my hand and all. People, please don't do that. Please follow the protocols. Coming to a question linked to this, now I think everybody's read enough on this, that coughing and sneezing does contain as many as 200 million virus particles. Yes, it does. 200 million virus particles. That is why. So normal speaking doesn't, but coughing and sneezing does. So now in an office environment, which is following all the protocols, somebody goes into a meeting room, has a video call, takes off their mask, does the video call. While they are leaving, maybe they are an asymptomatic carrier. While they are leaving, they sneeze. So normally if there is somebody else in the room, there is a certain threat. But so these cough or sneeze virus particles, it is not only, when you're face to face, but these particles may settle on a surface or on the carpet. Within 5 minutes, another person enters the room. There is a very high chance of that person contacting and, catching the virus. I can understand that in a high-end corporate, maybe they can have protocols to sanitize every meeting room after every use. How do a smaller MSME, small organizations, small offices, how do they sort this problem out? What do they do? I don't know if we have an answer. Let's try and brainstorm and get an answer.
See, in last 80 days, what we've learned is that we can communicate virtually.
Yes.
And, if we have challenges with sanitization and maintaining our meeting rooms, I don't see any reason for using a tool like Zoom or Microsoft Teams. There are multiple platforms to communicate. As humans, we love to socialize. We love to have people around and discuss, but we need to realize that the risks are very high. The stakes are very high. So we have to, maintain we've survived 60 days. We survived 80 days without getting in touch with each other. So we have to use technology. We have to also, change our behavior. So I think you can't just rely on the facilities guys or housekeeping guys. You can't rely on them. They can do their bit, but how we can mitigate the risks, that's something we need to work out. So it's not important for everybody to get into a meeting room. We had a meeting just before this call within the team. We had 2 people sitting in each meeting room and doing a Zoom call, right? Just to avoid it. Or somebody can sit on his desk and do a virtual meeting. While we maintain a visual link, but we're not sitting across each other and we're not sitting in proximity.
While we are coming back to offices, even then we are doing virtual meetings while being on the same premises.
Absolutely. Because why should we risk? I'm sitting in my room without a mask right now. It's because nobody is allowed to come into my room. The moment it becomes a public space, I will have to keep my mask on every time.
Yes.
So I won't risk that. I won't risk myself. So when I'm in my room, I'm the only person operating from this space. I'll go out, I'll wear a mask, I'll communicate to somebody and then come back. And if I have to have a meeting, I'll just switch on my laptop and communicate. So it is possible, we are waiting for cure. We're waiting for vaccination to come into the circulation to market. I think till that time, at least we can maintain these kind of restrictions.
So higher use of technology.
Of course.
And so my other question, Meghna, you want to say?
I personally feel, and again, when people come on these webinars, they are expecting us to tell you something different. Kuch naya nahi sikha humne aaj. This whole interest. Frankly speaking, kuch naya nahi hai. It's simple, modest, basic solutions that are the heroes of today.
Yeah.
And those we have been told for the last 6 weeks, and we've been practicing it. Use of technology has been high. So going back to work and using technology shouldn't be such a surprise to you. You've been doing it already. And the aspect of cleaning and keeping yourself clean. So the point, I think the one point that every billboard in Mumbai right now talks about is hand washing. I mean, don't forget that. You're going to have a meeting, be kind to others. You're having a meeting in that room. Aapki koi colleagues use karne wale hain. If you are a small SME, it's only running on the backbones of 5 or 6 people. So you've got to be respectful that if you want your supply chain to survive this, you've got to be respectful of their health as much as your own. So if you keep those hygiene laws and you make sure that you wipe your hands and you be in the moment is what I feel. Remember after your call, you need to wipe, wash, sanitize, move forward. If you keep those things in mind, it's a 3-step approach, you'll be fine. It's like mummies say, don't forget to wash your hands. I mean, just tell yourself what your mommy said. There's nothing wrong with that.
And how they used to pin the napkins.
Exactly. I mean, was it that difficult? So I do feel that the heroes are the simple things. And if you remember those, I think we'll be all right.
So linked to this, so I think, higher use of technology. Let us not forget that while the offices are opening, we have to say bye-bye to technology. So let us not start jumping up and down saying offices are open and the lockdown is, gone and it's unlocked. So let's just start rushing out into the streets and, waving our arms around. It's not that. We
have to be very careful. The countries which declared that they have overcome this pandemic, there was a second wave which came.
Yeah.
We haven't crossed the first wave yet. And, every day you see a exponential growth in the cases. Even if we flatten this curve, we cannot be complacent. The next wave can strike anytime. So the challenge is, are we prepared for that?
Yes.
While we are going through this transition, are we prepared for a next lockdown?
Totally.
Very good point, Deben.
I also linked to that point. I also wanted to ask that, so there is so much work that the housekeeping staff is doing for, sanitization and these protocols and the facility management teams and all. What about their safety?
Correct.
So their risk is, so we are calling them heroes, right? But
absolutely,
do they want to be heroes? What about the mental stress their families at home are going through? What are we doing, and what are companies, organizations doing for them? They are basically doing the job because they need a job, right?
See,
They didn't have to be heroes.
Frontline warriors, facility management, that's one of the business. I don't think it was part of the essential services, and they never had to sit at home, and during this lockdown, they were always working.
Always.
The offices were functional. The offices were maintained. So they, like healthcare workers and doctors, facility managers were also in the forefront. So hats off to their effort. And it's like any human being, the day the lockdown was over, and I had the first day to my office, I had to prepare myself as if I was going for a war, right? All the gear, carrying my water bottle, carrying my coffee bottle, everything. But you rightly said, what about these facilities guys? What about these housekeeping people? They don't have those kind of facilities, but they're exposing themselves. So as organization, we understood the challenges. We created SOPs, how we should manage. Even went and checked the kind of environment they're living in.
Yeah.
You can maintain everything within the four walls of your office. It's temperature check, hand wash, everything. But what happens to the person who's just stepping out from his home, taking a public transport, reaching to the office? So that is, in bigger cities, it's good 2 hours one way.
Yeah.
And he's most exposed.
Yeah. So Meenal, one thing we did at office, and I'm sure Knight Frank's doing the same, is number one, all the support functions who are supporting all of us have got full pace throughout this time. Number two, wherever possible, the staff that's coming into the office to support us are the ones closest to the office and can avoid taking public transport. जहाँ चल के आ सकते हैं या कोई किसी को pick up कर सकता है. So when I went to office yesterday, everybody's got our work groups. I just pinged everyone, hey, I'm going to office today. This is the time I'm leaving. किसी को क्या मैं pick up कर सकती हूँ or drop off कर सकती हूँ? So we are doing that. Third thing we did also, and again, I'm speaking for our fraternity, not just for my organization, is we ordered sufficient masks, sufficient hand sanitizer, and sufficient infrastructure support gear for that person's individual ability to keep themselves safe during the transit between office and home. Because there's only, we can only worry about what is in our, zone of control. Beyond that, you can't. We care and we have empathy, but there's only so much you can do. So what organizations within our fraternity is doing is exactly what I'm telling you. They're doing as much as they can within their control and as they learn to be able to support. And to that extent, we have also asked office boys to say, "Ke, aap theek hai? Kya aap aa paoge?" So for an example, we've got an office boy who is young gentleman and has a very old mother living with him. Now, if I were to ask him to come into work, and if something happens to him, it doesn't happen just to him. It happens to his mom. We have another person whose wife's going to have a baby. She's 8 months pregnant. And we've got projects ongoing in Pune. So we don't want those project managers coming in. They are feeling disappointed. There are project managers who feel that if they are not working with their colleagues, they're not doing enough. Well, you have to keep them energized, motivated, and exercised, saying, hey, buddy, just wait for 2-3 more weeks. This is your project. It's not going anywhere. No one's going to take this away with you. It's always going to be your baby. But you have another baby to worry about right now, and that's the one we want you to focus on. So all of us are doing everything we can within the fraternity to be able to support each other, be empathetic, and then follow the protocols the government guidelines are giving us, like the ASHRAE guidelines and all the others.
That's very nice. I would once again, at this point, request the participants, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A section so that the panelists can take them up and answer them for you. Thank you so much. I would now like to just ask both of you, So Deben mentioned that, they are in their office having these meetings, even though they are in the same office, in different cabins and all. But what happens when people have these, open plan offices and all? How can you possibly create more physical distancing? I don't want to call it social distancing. Let us be close to each other socially. Let's only maintain the 2 gaj ki duri physically. So how do we create physical distancing in workspaces with minimal disruption and in a cost-effective manner? So because right now, however big or medium size or small the organization is, let's face it, guys, everybody is cash strapped.
Yeah.
Nobody's got oodles of money lying around to waste. So how do we do it with minimal disruption and in a cost-effective manner? How do we ensure? Of course, right now, on an immediate basis, there are lesser number of people coming to offices, but
So that's the case only in Mumbai right now, where there are restrictions. What we've done here is, again, even if you want to fit in the total capacity in your office, your building won't have that kind of infrastructure to support it. In a lift, you can just have 4 people coming.
yeah.
And I was attending another webinar where one of the speakers said there was a 60-story building. His office was on 60th floor. It took him 2 hours to reach to his office from the ground floor lobby. So the effective way is, while we're talking about keeping a 6 feet distance or 2 meter distance, having touchless surfaces, you have sensor tabs, you're not using biometrics for access control. It's a retina scan, or you don't care about attendance these days. That's what is happening in our office. If the offices have 2 aisles, you create one way so that people don't brush against each other. So you create a circulation pattern. Put the markings on the floor. All right. Have those door openers, which you can just kick the door and it opens. You have those door openers, right?
For sure.
Yeah. And then work out a plan where you have either a staggered, seating. You create alternate seatings. See, now we know that work from home is possible. So what is happening here? We created 3 groups right now. Before we could achieve 100% capacity, we had 3 groups. A, B would come alternate days, and there was C group, which were using public transport. So we asked them to work from home only. Now we have everybody coming to our office, but we're still maintaining the social distance because we're coming in shifts. The first shift starts, say, at 8 o'clock. People work till 2:30. Then the other group comes, and there's a 1 hour gap when we sanitize the office. The other group comes and they work till 6 or 7. So that's the way you have to, operate when you say in a short term or an immediate term. Then, the mid-term interventions are where you look at your HVAC system, create the, have filtration system proper. You get more fresh air, treated fresh air, or so if you have operable windows, keep those open. So, and maintain humidity levels. Bombay, you don't have to worry about humidity. There's enough humidity there.
Too much humidity.
Yeah, but you can use humidifiers to create that 40 to 60% of humidity, which, as per studies, is controls the virus. So these are some of the interventions you can bring in ASAP.
Yeah. Yeah, and Meenal, you say that, how do you maintain this? What I've noticed is often larger offices, larger problems and larger issues, because you've got this all herd thing happening, going in and coming out at the same time for lunches, for meetings, for coming into work, going out of work. So the larger your crowd, the worse it is. But at the same time, I feel as we go into this A, B, and C mode, and I could not have articulated it as well as Deben did. It's the A group, B group, and C. It's really cool. And how we do this, let's not forget there's a lot of tech available cheap. So I'm like a kid in a candy store when it comes to technology. I get very excited. Everything's like, what's this? What am I going to do? How can I do this? So all of that. Tech is not that expensive anymore. So when we're talking about putting in solutions, for example, like a Fitbit watch telling you the proximity sensor which buzzes or goes off because you're too close to someone, that's easy to do and it's not expensive. It's amazing, it's just sensor based. Ya to apne mobile pe, because constantly we are on mobiles. So, you have an app that you download and it buzzes when you get, because it's controlling your zone of 6 feet, right? The diameter. So it starts buzzing when you get too close to someone. That is really cool, I thought. I really want to give that one a go, even after COVID. So, things like that are out there which can help you. And there are zillions of these. And if you ask me, I'll tell you. Otherwise, I'll keep mum.
Okay. So that sounds interesting. I wanted to ask you, Meghna. Now, this is a thought that just came to my head. Is there any which way that we can creatively use vertical space to be a part of the solution in creating a bit more separation in the longer term?
When you say vertical space, how so? Do you mean in a building or do you mean within the office?
So, no, not in a building, meaning building we already do, right? We already have like two tall towers, I think.
Yeah.
It's growing too tall already. We shouldn't have such tall towers, but within an office.
So I thought you meant within a building, because we recently had a situation, small story. We are doing a project in a building where there's another organization doing another project. So they're doing a project on the 3rd floor, and we are doing the project from 7th till 16th. And as it transpired, one of the security guards on one of their floors contracted the COVID infection. So now they shut down the entire building, and they were so scared to open it. They're like, okay, what are we going to do? So then we sat down with them and said, well, you've got 8 lifts, 4 staircases. We're doing 7 floors. Can I just have that staircase? Because, you've got to get creative. You are doing 7 or 8 floors in buildings now. So can I have that staircase? Which meant that he said, okay, well, what do I get out of it? And I said, well, what you get out of it is I'll sanitize that staircase for you. You don't have to pay for it. I'll pay for it. I'll manage it for you. So what that gave the developer, what it gave me far more than what it gave them. But landlords are often looking at operational costs because of this. And because this idea came about, he's like, okay, bhai, agar aapke liye chalega, then he can try it elsewhere. That means if you think about it, if he's got 4 staircases and if he's got chunks of floors that people are doing, and they're happy to take over the sanitization of that staircase, that means he has to spend that much lesser. He wins, but I win more than he wins, frankly. So that's what I was thinking about when you said vertical separation, not in the space on a floor where we're already working. I can't quite figure what you mean. So apologies, I didn't understand what you meant.
So for example, now you have these sleeping pods kind of thingy.
Right.
So there are bunker beds.
Right.
You have berths.
Right.
There are double-decker buses.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Hey, I have to put my hand up and say, we haven't evaluated this vertical thing as yet, not for ourselves or any of our clients just yet, because the challenge is that, in fact, it's happened the other way around. So we've got bunk beds in many clients' offices where they work 24/7. And so they use them as sleeping pods, basically, like you mentioned. But they've said they'd rather not keep the sleeping pods in use because of the infection, because how are you going to climb? Then wo clean karna padega. Sheets hai, saliva, and you people drool. It's normal. It happens. So how do you then mitigate those? So majority of our clients have said no. And we've not evaluated this as well, but you've given me food for thought. I'm going to have to work on this one.
I think, for some time, all these frills would be thrown out of the window in any office, because we had those telephone booths, again, high-risk areas. Sleeping pods would be high risk. Bunk beds would be high risk. So at least for some time, I don't think the organizations or companies would use that. And even people won't feel comfortable using those. And we have to then maintain it so stringently that we minimize the risk. But I think mentally we should prepare ourselves that we have to live without these frills for quite some time. No breakout areas, no lunch rooms, no sleeping pods, and just work plainly.
Okay. So, but what about these things in the longer term? Now that people are, because see, this is an influenza, right? We have to live with it. It's not that after 6 months or 9 months or even 1 year, it's going to go away.
It won't. It won't. See, till it will take us at least 2 to 3 years to develop that herd immunity, right? I was, listening to that conversation with Adar Poonawala, who said by September, October, they'll be out with a vaccination. At least till that time, as I said, for some time, I didn't say forever, for some time we have to live without these frills. Once we develop the herd immunity, we have the vaccination. It's unfortunately, this has gone out of control, but look at SARS, look at H1N1, look at Ebola. They could spread like this.
Yeah, absolutely right.
So, because, if you, consider the history, like Spanish flu was considered the most deadly flu ever in 1819 something, or whatever. So, and we're talking about after a century, we're talking about a similar kind of impact, even with technology, even with best, healthcare. If you look at those pictures, you'll find those pictures on Google and all. During Spanish flu, people used to wear masks, face shields, what we're doing right now, we did century back. And that triggered health and hygiene at that point of time. So this might trigger something else. The way we live, the way we behave, everything would change. But for the time being, till we don't have cure for this, we have to, as I said earlier, behave ourselves.
Meenal, I found something very amusing. I was looking through websites to find, everybody kept talking about this UV light thing, right? That UV light kills bacteria or infections. So I kept Googling and looking. I said, there's got to be something that can clean fabric and surfaces. It can't be not possible. And funnily enough, I found something on a mommy and baby website. You'll be surprised. When children play and they're toddlers and you put them in a pen sometimes, because you're cooking or something and you want them in a confined space, and you have a rug because they keep hitting their head and all of that. And they're constantly in that space. So there are these tiny UV auto robots, very, very small ones, cute ones, this much size, not expensive. You can get them off Amazon, who go around that space with a UV light on the bottom, which keep desanitizing the space. And I found it on a mommy and baby website. So, there are creative solutions out there which are not expensive, which can be used, which can be charged over a USB, which can keep surfaces clean during downtime or during overnight. So there are solutions out there that are possible to keep your surfaces and hygiene factor slightly higher if you want it. You just have to go out and look for them, really.
Great. So we have a question. I'll come back to the design aspects in a bit. There is a question which has come to either of you from Narendra Dhairyavan, which says, regards to the current pandemic, what is the status of various surfaces where we earlier used to touch feel, for example, tabletops, etc.? We talk about touch-free systems. How do we go about it? And this is just one of the aspects.
So as I mentioned earlier, the cleaning protocol needs to be upgraded. Now we're talking about antimicrobial surfaces. Again, those would be looked at. So those would be must-haves. So the interiors of the office would be treated like how we design healthcare, facilities. So like hospitals, when you design hospital, you think of different kind of specifications. You keep in mind health and hygiene, and Meghna can elaborate on that. So I think when we're looking at an office, it should not be only considered as something which looks very nice. Only the aesthetics is part of it. Functionality and maintainability is something that needs to be thought through, and it should be made as part of the design guideline. So when we're designing hospitals, we think those. So when we're now designing offices or even homes, we have to think of those kind of materials, those kind of surfaces.
Meghna, you want to add something?
Totally agree. I could not agree. 100% accurate. I mean, we have to completely change the way we think about spaces. From the time you come in to the door and the elevator, I found this, again, I'll give a gadget example because I noticed this. And like I said, I get very excited about gadgets. There's this hologram top-up panel that you get, which is not expensive. And it goes and fits into your lift. You need a lift wala banda to get it, energized. But once you find him and he's ready to come to fix it, it's a hologram. You're pressing the buttons because, as human beings, if you're going to restrict me from doing everything I was doing, my body is going to get more restricted and I can't be free. We need to try and mimic everything because ultimately it's affecting our brain and our emotions. So when you ask someone, are you okay? Oh, yeah, I'm okay. I'm sure. I can't wait for this thing shut down to end. So you say all these things, but the more you restrict your movement, the more you don't mimic what you used to do, the further behind in your mind or your heart you're going. And then comes about that piece of trying to make everybody feel normal. So I love this piece, So as soon as you enter, you've got this hologram. You are actually doing that button 03, floor number. So you're not touching anything, but you have the feeling that you're touching something and you're going somewhere with it. You come up to the office. You've got this now new system of being able to facial recognition with your mask on. So great. So I don't have to remember to remove my mask. Otherwise, it's like, "Arey yaar, main mask nikala bhul gaya." Acha, beach se mach pakadna mask. Apparently, it's the wrong way to do it. You're supposed to pull it out on the side. Thanks. So I learned this very recently. So things like that. So it's enabling you to be yourself still. You go in and you sit on your chairs and they said that, yes, we've disinfected them or sanitized them, so that's fine. You start working on your desk and you've done an antimicrobial finish or a feel on it. Or people have done some simple things as well. They come in and they put in these nice papers, which look like a pseudo desk, right? It looks like a pseudo desk with where you're going to put your pens, and that's where you're going to put your post-its, and that's where you put your laptop. So it gives you a remit to work within, but it still feels normal. And then when you finish, you squish it up and put it in the bin. And that also, by the way, there is no bin on the bottom because you made it centralized, which is even better because you're restricting the spread and you go back to the centralized bin. So simple things that lead you to simple solutions and less problems is what I'm noticing. Or these are the things we are propagating because, again, CapEx budgets have shrunk and so have the OpEx budgets. People are thinking CapEx is only affected. Not really. Even OpEx is going through a lot of pressure because of all this. So you've got to think about that as well. So there are a lot of simple things that we are doing to keep the microbial things off and then contain it in one spot.
Okay. That's very, very helpful. That's like a lot of inputs all in just one question answered. Thank you so much. There are a couple of more questions. So before we take on further chat, I will address the questions. So one guy has asked, I think this is something that I had covered, but I'll just throw it open for the two of you if you want to add to this. What are the 5 things offices have to do in order to ensure safety for their people?
Okay.
Deben, you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. It's not only offices, it's everywhere you go. You go to a mall, you go to even your residential apartment. I think you need to have those screening protocols in place. You are screened for your temperature, you're checked. You have to have Arogya Setu app because that's mandatory. You can't deny that. And again, I think in terms of what kind of clothes you wear, you can't have clothes that can catch a lot of dust or any other particles. So you have to. So this is step 1. Then how you use. You don't have to touch the handrails. You don't have to touch the wall surfaces. As Meghna said, the lifts are coming up with voice recognition or that hologram thing. So those technologies are available. So we have to get that. And once you enter office, so there will be at least 3 or 4 checkpoints. We have to go through this painful process, but it's for our own good. So we have to manage that. And then when we work in office, make sure that you're maintaining distance, you're wearing masks, you're not throwing things in a waste. And the waste management is very critical, because if you're throwing your mask in a normal waste bin, you might it might be infected with something. So you should be very careful with that.
I think of it from a little bit of a distance, and all of these things I feel bucket into certain categories, right? So there is this category of how do you plan your space, so space planning. Second category is materials and materiality of things. What you're proposing now changes, and how you're going to implement those things changes. Third piece is the technology piece, which I've harped on about. Fourth piece is the culture and behavior piece, which is what affects us most. And fifth piece is the well-being piece, which we haven't touched most, in this conversation. So if you think of these 5 things, and then everything else becomes a subset in one way or the other of these 5 things, I feel, because that covers from your space to you. And and we designers love talking about it, the I space and the we space and the space. So if you consider these 5 things, I think everything else forms as a subset. And the fact that we are all going to design hospitals now. So new degrees, please.
Okay, so one person had said that he or she agrees with my point of coughing and sneezing. It can be a bad impact on the meeting, and what kind of suggestions. I think Deben had already answered that point, that we need to use more and more technology. So your question has been answered. Thank you so much. Please make sure you follow that suggestion in your offices. Somebody has given a suggestion that they think putting SOP in place and is compulsory for every staff to put in place. Yes, it is very, very important for every staff to follow the SOPs. That is what we have said. And somebody is complimenting you, Meghna. Space Matrix, great initiative. Kudos to Team Space Matrix. I think for taking care of your staff very well. And but compliments to Knight Frank and Team Knight Frank as well. I would say they are doing a great job of especially the idea about 2 people being in the same premises, and how they are using different meeting rooms and doing virtual meetings. There's a question on how will the industry shape up for co-working businesses? I think I have done several webinars only about co-working. This might be the wrong forum to address that. What do you say, guys?
Co-working would become, it's given us a flexibility in terms of how we work, but nothing can replace office. Offices are not going to die.
You really want to take me on a panel which I am moderating?
So, no, I'm saying offices won't die. Offices would remain there.
No, so, okay. Co-working won't die, but the commercial real estate industry won't die. This is not the end of...
So, what will happen is the way we work, the things would change. We will have more flexibility now, the way we work. Yeah. Thanks to the technology. So, why before pandemic also, when we used to do workplace strategy for many clients, we used to sort of come up with, the observation that they would use 60 or 70 or 80% of their real estate because most of the time, 20 to 30% people won't be in the office. The only time they'll have full strength would be on Mondays, when people would come to office for weekends and but rest of the week, there was never a full capacity. So, taking a cue from that, and what we've gone through is that the flexibility in working the way we work, identifying the functions which can operate without being in office. That flexibility would come. So the change, there would be a balance. Yeah. See, work from home has been there since since late 70s. So organizations have, experimented this, and due to certain challenges, in India, we have the infrastructure challenges. Meenal, before this webinar, you said you might have to use your phone because you're not sure about the connectivity part. Delhi, we have, a problem of electricity. So we cannot completely rely on work from home. Again, in bigger cities like Mumbai, where in a 2-bedroom flat, you have 5 or 6 people living. How can you manage work from home? You have 5 people, doing a call or a webinar from one room. It's a challenge. Then you don't have infrastructure to support work from home. You need, ergonomic chair. You need a desk. You can't just. It impacts your health. Finally, we are social animals. We need to collaborate. We need to, meet people. We need to. So, long term work from home could lead to depression. It could lead to loneliness.
Yeah, absolutely right. Very well said, Deben. It goes back to the point I was making about create, isolate, and collaborate.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do this anywhere. You have to do it in a space where you can be with people. And one thing we are forgetting, which is the future of our world, is the Gen Z. If you go to Glassdoor, if you go to Facebook, you go to Instagram, they're actually posting pictures of their versus our offices. They're posting pictures of my colleagues versus your colleagues, So this whole, because the future of our world is the Gen Z, let's not forget, they are all about intuitive, impulsive feelings and reactions. And you can't have that in your 4 walls with your mom and dad. You get out. You've got to meet people. You've got to learn and grow and be. So we're not going to be able to, I think all of us are going to have jobs for quite some time,
Yes.
I was reading an article where, the impact of work from home, the positive impact is people who used to have those virtual meetings would suddenly see a dog jumping or a kid. So I think, it's made people come closer. People have, seen the private lives of their colleagues. So there's much more bonding. So when they meet in office, they can talk about it. So it has a positive impact as well.
It does indeed. I was on a call recently with one of my clients, and obviously I hadn't put the mute button, and it was dinner time. So my husband came in and he said, "What's for dinner?" And it was heard. And everybody after that, every time there's a call around that time, they said, "Hey, Meghna, what's for dinner?" So yeah, it does bring you closer. And this is a great human experiment. I totally agree. It's going to teach us so much more about each other and humility and affection. And it also helps you, those feathers of each other that we used to ruffle because we didn't quite know that person, didn't really want to know that person. They make me uncomfortable. Suddenly you're seeing the human side of that, and it's only bringing more bonding, which is amazing.
Totally. I agree. So coming back to Ritika's question about the co-working industry, I think, Ritika, we will definitely invite you to the panel that we do next about co-working industry. But the co-working industry only has a bigger, brighter future because the clients are going to love the flexibility and scalability options even more.
I have a question for the moderator, if I can ask.
Okay, I will make sure you are the moderator. So.
No, now. I want
I'm not becoming the moderator. Wait. So let me finish. Wait for the next question. There's a question for you right there by Dishesh. So the thing is, Ritika, because right now, all kind of companies in all kind of industries are going through challenges that the co-working industry is also going through. So it is all right. People just need to hang on for certain time. There is a consolidation that is going to happen, that was anyways bound to happen in the co-working industry. It's just been brought a little forward because of this current pandemic. But co-working spaces which are going to take care of their clients and going to take care of all the protocols in terms of the workspaces that has been discussed in the previous webinar and this webinar very kindly by Deben and Meghna right now. Those who are taking care of all those protocols have nothing to fear about. Deben, Dishesh Pandya wants to understand from you about the future of project management post and during this pandemic, as many of the clients have either dropped or postponed their projects that had been planned?
So what I can say is the future will be bright. So these are testing times. I think it would bring a technological change the way we work. We in India, we have not used much of technology for managing projects. We will see, like architects use VRs, will use more of softwares like BIM would be used for the designing. Now at sites, we have to maintain social distancing and hygiene protocols. We'll see lesser number of labor, but yes, skilled ones. We might see off-site construction. So things would become modular. You just bring it to site and assemble and put it there, which has been happening in the West. And I think this change is due in India because there will be lesser dependency on the labor. We've seen the reverse migration happening. So for some time, we'll see the challenges with the labor. So again, artificial intelligence, all kinds of technologies, 3D printing, everything, we'll see that use coming into picture. So far, we've been just reading about this, and we'll see a lot of implementation of technology so that you have lesser dependency on human effort.
That's very interesting. There's another question which is very, very interesting and relevant. I know we are running short of time, but I would like to take this one and another question. Could you guys please share your insight on, so post-COVID-19, I don't think there is any post-COVID-19, it's an influenza, it's going to stay, but yeah, post the vaccination and all. Do we need to start focusing on the incorporation of inclusive design in our workspace projects? And I think both of you should answer this.
So Meghna, would you like to?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there is no question, 100%. Inclusivity has been on top of agendas a short while ago, and I can't remember exactly when. There was a shift in who were influencing design. So earlier in organizations, the capex, capital spend, how many people, which kind of office, and everything was driven by finance. And then there was this whole shift to HR and people taking over people's spaces. So 100% inclusivity has become a very top of the agenda for organizations because it's all about making you feel most comfortable and being able to do the best of what you can be. So 100%, I totally agree. And that, interestingly, the reason I mentioned the shift from the finance heads, and no disrespect to them, to HR is because HR was driving the human agenda all along, people agenda. And one of the people agenda was to be able to be inclusive. And it used to get sidelined from the agenda of efficiency and how much money do we have? What is the space available? And how much per square foot space we want to give. It was more driven by the CFO with his financial hat and suddenly driven by HR by its people hat. So definitely. It's been on the agenda all along. It's just going to get better as time passes. Deben, has I given you something else to think about that I've missed?
Yeah, so I would just, while I agree with you that the focus has moved to HR, I think, what's happening in the West is something which now organizations are leaving it to the experts to decide how they should design their offices or how they should function in their offices. So that's called workplace strategy, which is, you understand the business and then you create a brief for them or the requirement sheet for them and then design, which I think HR would have a challenge because as a designer, you would reach out to each stakeholder and understand what they want. I think that's the inclusiveness in the design. I was reading an article which said, post-COVID world, what will happen is because there would be a challenge in terms of attracting talent also. When people would be interviewing the candidates. And in the past, it was, HR interviewing the candidates. Now the candidates would interview the offices. They want to choose their offices. They want to see what their future employee is providing them in terms of, health and hygiene and care. So I think that would create a difference when you are reaching out to stakeholders, you're reaching out to the users to understand how they want to operate into the office, not leave it to an admin or a facility or an HR guy to decide what is good for everybody.
Very good point. Very, very good point.
One discussion that we were having related to this and HR and the that people are looking at now, you were mentioning something about a wellness certification and, companies going in for that, and that you want to elaborate on that?
Thank you for asking. I completely missed that, and Deben had pointed this out to me as well last time.
Yes.
So the last bit was the wellness aspect and how people are going. And this goes back to the point he just made about workplace strategy and interest in inclusivity, etc. So we have seen a surge in interest of employee wellness. And it has come from the fact that everybody is doing the peacocking effect of their spaces, which means that you've got to be thinking about them. Otherwise, they may not want to be interested in you. It sounds like dating almost. So yeah, so yes, so the wellness agenda has become quite very much on top. The kind of space you provide, the amount of biophilia, the ability to have flexible working areas, the sit-stand desks, the alternative workspaces, to be able to be mobile when you work, to be able to collaborate as and when you see fit rather than space forcing you to collaborate in that area. So yes, wellness is very much on top of the agenda. And I think two of our, so BRIAM is a UK term, but BRIAM and LEAD have been around for a while. We used to always say, I used to always say to clients, and it's part of your sales speech when you do it, you say, I do LEAD for buildings, I do LEAN for construction, and now I do well for people. So it now actually, the full circle has come about. Earlier, that well piece was missing. The challenge, though, I have to tell you, Meenal, is the expense towards getting these certifications is so excruciatingly high that many of the clients are agreeing to put in all of the elements, but the certification sometimes falls a bit short. Hopefully, we'll have enough certifications in India, thereby trying to reduce the price and be able to certify your spaces. But yeah, it is all driven around people and the comfort of people.
I won't, I would disagree with this certification part. Knight Frank does wellness certification in India. We are exclusive partners with Delos. And, what if people are, LEAD was very material-centric certification. Wellness is human-centric. So it talks about ventilation, air quality, thermal health, moisture, dust, safety, water quality, nourishment, everything. And if you're able to achieve certain points in LEAD certification, then you won't have any challenge in getting. And wellness has silver, gold, and platinum certification.
Correct.
So if you meet certain parameters, and unlike LEAD, which is a one-time certification thing, wellness is, you have to keep on reapplying, because every time you get after a certain period of time, you have to get your site inspected or office inspected to, confirm whether you're adhering to all the norms. And, I was reading this article where they did an analysis of 3,000 workers across 40 buildings. And the sick leaves attributable to poor ventilation was almost 57%. We don't even think about this. Is like, when I started architecture, I used to hear this term called sick building syndrome. It's actually there. Most of the offices here don't have treated fresh air. What we are breathing in the office is more harmful than if you breathe normal air outside the building. So we have to, this is high time where we have to think about wellness, well-being of people. I don't think any cost should matter, because if you care about people, you'll spend the cost, and it's not much. Let me tell you this, Meghna. The well certification doesn't cost you much.
So in October, we are in May right now, June. In 3 months, we have 2 projects which will go through the first well certification, for lead and well certification. So we are quite excited and looking forward to it. And hopefully then we'll form a case point to tell other clients, hey, look, it happened and it's not that bad and it should be easy. And then we can hopefully do more.
This should become part of the design. As I said, healthcare is something which we need. Healthcare design is something which we need to keep in mind when we're designing offices also. Yeah. It automatically will become part of our design.
Yeah, it's interesting because we do design integrated. So we've got interior designers, sustainability, mechanical, electrical, all of them sit together in the same office. So we don't offshoot design elsewhere. So one of the interesting things was, and this I learned when I joined Space Matrix, is that because they're all sitting together, they're thinking about each other's agenda together. Because they'll say, "Fir baad mein aake mujhe mat bolna ke, तूने वो water faucet का सोचा नहीं था. You know that I need this in my design." So it's very interesting that everyone's thinking of each other's agenda when you're designing together, and sustainability is the foundation of design, which is quite interesting. So thank you for bringing that up, because I wouldn't have been able to make my point without
that. Yeah, the fresh air part was, I think, very, very interesting, and that healthy and sick building. In fact, I was just going to ask him, that was the next question about healthy buildings and sick buildings. So that was very, very interesting. And in fact, there is a question on that, and I wanted Deben to touch on the HVAC designs as well. So the question is, what, apart from partition design, HVAC design, lighting designs, sensor doors, will change in designs going forward? So tell me, guys.
So apart from these, what all changes can come into the design?
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence, sensor-based fixtures. So you will have, face recognition in the offices. So a lot of technology. IoT is something which is future for any office or any building now.
Yeah, and space planning. I mean, all of these are gadgets of space planning. So our whole entire space planning is going to go into rethink. So that, and then all of this, but IoT, I think, it takes the cake. There's so much going on there. It's become like the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
In fact, we were discussing this, and I had mentioned this in the last webinar as well, that now there are people, and if you talk to Partha, he will tell you more about it. There are organizations who have developed technology that you can map which work unit, as in which desk is occupied right now. So which employee is sitting where.
You have sensors in everything. You will have sensors in your light fixtures. You have sensors in your HVAC. A customized, temperature would be for that person. You're moving in your office, the sensor would sense your requirements.
Right now, that organization is there. They're already doing it in other parts of the globe, and they are able to map which employees using it on which days of the week for how many hours, and for how many hours are they using the laptop, and what is their temperatures, and which days of the week are they coming to work, which days of the week are they working from home, kind of thing. And there's so much data available. So I just think, the layers of technology which are coming, so they can basically map their entire occupancy.
Absolutely.
So, data is king. That's why we use that 3D. The software I was telling you about, SaltMind, it does exactly that. It tells you how to design and then how to implement it through IoT. So I get what you're saying. Very interesting.
So I think we've already overshot by 15 minutes, and we should let the people go. And I love the last bit. Oh, we have more questions. I think any more questions now we will answer offline. We can do that. There are people who are saying what an amazing session this was. Thanks to the organizers and great learnings. They've taken pointers and they're going to use it in the coming days. So thank you so much, Deben and Meghna. Thank you so much for your enlightening views and tips. Over to you, Suman, if you want to say something about GBB.
No, I'm fine. Actually, thank you all for the insightful session. And this has been a live broadcast on Facebook, and it's been recorded as well. We'll be uploading on our website in a couple of days. And again, I thank Meenal, Deben, and Meghna for your time and for your insights. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Meenal, for wonderful moderation, and thanks, Meghna, for giving insights. Thank you so much.